Hello, everybody. How's it going? Ben Gothard here, and today we have another Project Egg interview. Today we're talking to Brian Fouts from Washington. How you doing today, Brian?
Doing very good, thanks.
Absolutely. Glad to have you on the show. So my first question for you today, Brian, is what is your story?
So my story is pretty traditional. I came from the typical background of middle class America. Both my brother Jake and I, we come from a middle class family, born and raised in Olympia, Washington, and we're taught to work hard, go get good grades in school, and go to college, get a degree, and then go out in the workforce and work hard for that 401k and hopefully retire when you're 60 years old. So the traditional background, that's how we got started in life. Went to college, got good degrees in construction management, and went out there. And then some life happened to us, that's how I would put it. Some stuff happened to our family. 2008 happened, the crash happened. And my brother Jake and I decided that the traditional path was a lie. It was false. And that if we continued down that path, we would crash and burn eventually and would be stuck with the rest of the world, that you realize that you don't have any financial future or security. And so we went on our own little mini quest to find, knowledge and information about the financial world out there. And that led us to, reading lots of books, mentors, ended up becoming real estate investors. We ended up creating our own private investment fund. And then eventually that led us to the Elevation Group, which is an online financial education business, and where we started learning a lot of strategies, started implementing them. And then within a short period of time, we bought that business using the same strategies that we learned inside of it. And then here we are today running that existing business.
That's awesome. And I want to dive a little bit more into your history. So you said you grew up, a traditional middle class family. What did that look like? What did that feel like? Like, some people you talk to as entrepreneurs, and there's been generations of entrepreneurs in their family, and they've always been taught to try really think outside the box like that. But what was it for you? What did it look like? What was your childhood like?
I would say it was pretty standard that we didn't really think about finances. I was not taught about finances or money. It just wasn't, taught by teachers, taught by our parents, taught by, our education system, definitely not taught by, the government or Wall Street. It was just, hey, do the traditional path and essentially do what everybody else is doing. So without thinking about it. And so that was my upbringing. I had no real financial knowledge or education. And looking back on it now, it's you kind of like are, slapping your hand in your forehead and saying, oh my gosh, what was I doing? But, because the retirement plans that were available to like my parents, as an example, are not available anymore. They don't exist. When they started working, 401ks didn't exist. They had pension plans that were phenomenal. And those pension plans don't exist anymore for the most part. I mean, they do exist in some industries, but for the most part, they're not there anymore, because eventually corporate America realized they could pass the risk of retirement off to the employees through a 401k, which is what happened in 78 or 77 when that went into existence. And so when I look back on it, it's that education was not there, but it wasn't something we thought about either. And so for me moving forward, like today, I have young kids. Jake, my brother, has, his kids are a little older than mine. We're talking to them differently. We're teaching them differently about what you're going to do with your life. Don't just go get a job and work for 40 years to hope to live for 30 years in retirement and hopefully your money doesn't run out before you die, versus go do something that you want to do with your life from the beginning. Don't live for working. Don't just trade your time for money blindly. And that's a lot of what I realized, is that a lot of that mentality was work hard for somebody else, trade your time for money. So that was the mentality that I had in my head that I don't have anymore.
Absolutely. And for people who they still may be struggling with that mentality, what sort of advice can you give to them to help them break that mold, to help them break out of that mindset?
There's a lot of options on that one. But one for me was knowledge, just knowledge and education. So that's why I was originally attracted to the Elevation Group, because that's what it's all about. It's about getting that knowledge of the wealthy. And so what we do there, and what it does, is we basically go and learn the strategies of the ultra rich and bring them to the world so that they can think and learn the same way, because they do think differently. But it's available to anybody who wants it. It's just not taught. And so for someone who wants to break out of that mold, one is, for me, is look at your environment. Your environment makes you who you are to a degree, and you're molded by it. Everybody's heard the term that you'll be as the average of the 5 people you're around the most. So as far as finances goes, you're typically the average, wealth-wise or income-wise, as the 5 people you spend the most time with, or you associate with. Like so, for one thing I would always do for people that I'm coaching is that split it into thirds. A third of the people you spend time with should be people you're mentoring or bringing up. A third of your time should be with people that are your equals or that are your competition, and a third should be people that are above you that you want to be, who are pulling you up. And always be trying to surround yourself with those types of individuals. That makes me, for my opinion, that makes you a little more well-rounded. There's a lot of people I know that always want to say, "Oh, I only want to associate with people above me," but in reality, to me, it's got to be a balance of it. So a third is what I always recommend to people: is just get around the people that have the different mindset or the right mindset. And so for each one of those groups, they have that same mindset that they want to grow and change and do something different in their lives. So like my passion is really helping people that were where my brother and I were 7 years ago. And so that's what my mission is with Elevation Group, is to help those individuals with knowledge and access to the right people and the right strategies. The other thing to do is just read books and really get knowledge. And then the other thing too is that a lot of people, that when they're stuck in the middle class, they want something different, but they don't know what they want. And so one of the exercises that I went through is I said, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to travel? Do I want to spend more time with my family? And I got very, very, very clear on that. And I went through some exercises. Tony Robbins has a couple good exercises where you go through and you envision what your future is. So I always recommend people do that and write that stuff down. Don't just think about it. You write it down. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And then you back into what are you doing today to make that happen? Because most people aren't doing anything. Well, if you don't do anything today, nothing's going to happen in the future that's different. What you do today is going to shape your future. So just a little thing, I called it the 2-degree shift or the 2-millimeter shift. Do something today that can shift you 2 millimeters and it will transform your future.
Absolutely. That's a brilliant idea. So I want to talk about that thing that you said about spending a third of your time bringing people up, a third of your time with your peers or competitors, and a third of your time with people above you. So when you're looking for that top third, that upper tier, in some ways that could kind of be seen as a mentor, as mentorship. How do you, one, find those people that you aspire to be? How do you find those people? And when you do find them, how do you reach out to them and connect?
It depends on what industry you're looking at, or like if you're in construction, example, because I was in construction management, one way to do it inside that career was to go and talk to owners or invite owners out for lunch of other bigger companies, just because they love talking to people that are, want that knowledge. But in reality, I want to get out of that industry. So for me, it was going to local meetup groups and finding the people in those groups that I liked, that were doing what I wanted to do. And then I would just invite them out to lunch, coffee, whatever. And you'll find that those people really want to talk to you, because guess what? You're the third that is below them that they want to pull up. And so they want to do that. They enjoy it. Because when you get to that level, I love doing that now. I love talking to people and educating them and bringing them up. It's an awesome journey. And so for me, it was, I went to some Tony Robbins events and I met with some people there and found some coaches there actually. And some of them I actually paid. So I did pay for some coaching through that organization. I met some individuals there that were just successful, and I went on a retreat with some people. So it was a for back then, it was a bullet that I had to bite essentially and spend the money, but I was able to be surrounded by, dozens of multimillionaires and business owners. And to this day, I'm friends with a handful of them. And those are my upper third that I associate with. And to be honest, through my journey, there's been people that were at that upper third who ended up becoming my equals. And then they became the people that were below me all of a sudden, because they were stagnant and I'm always growing. And so that's fun that when that happens, you can, the mentor becomes the mentee. Just associate with groups locally. If that's, a one way that I would recommend is just find meetups. So meetup.com, I think, is the one that I originally started using. I went to local real estate groups and just found the people there that were really successful at it and just invited them out and did that. You can do retreats, or masterminds. Those are some great ways if you have the capital to do it. So masterminds. And then the other thing that I always recommend is you don't have to actually meet with somebody in person to have them be your mentor. So Tony Robbins could be your mentor just because you study him and you study his books and you listen to his podcasts. So Robert Kiyosaki, He could be your mentor because you study his lessons, you study what he does, you read his books. It doesn't mean you actually have to go on an expensive retreat or meet with him in person. That always helps. But one of the things that every successful business owner, millionaire, billionaire that I've met with and studied has done and interviewed is they are always studying other people.
Absolutely. The last thing I heard was the thing that all really successful people do, and the billionaires that you've met and talked to and interviewed are, is that they study other people.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that all those successful people I've studied, interviewed, they study other people. They read books like you wouldn't believe. They read a lot and they study a lot. They're always learning and educating. They never stop doing that. And so they're studying people that are below them, at their level, that are above them. And so one of the easiest things that any person who's just getting going or wants to change their course can do is just start educating through reading books and studying other people that you are attracted to. As you know, a lot of like Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of people love his stuff that he puts out. Just start studying what he does and just learning those lessons. That's how you can change the way your focus, change the way you think. So that'd be one of the great ones I would recommend. For me, I was able to get involved with some groups. I was very fortunate to have some good mentors. I started studying and learning other successful individuals and what they were doing, how they had, and I wanted to find people that were at my level and had transformed to where I wanted to be and said, okay, I'm not going to go try to find the millionaire who became a multimillionaire. I wanted to find the average person who started with nothing or was, my level and then became successful, my version of successful, and study how did they do that transformation. So I started studying that. When I became a member of the Elevation Group originally, I was studying those millionaires that were interviewed. I was learning their lessons and their stories. And so that was a huge source of knowledge and education for me. And then I was, very fortunate with my brother to actually go and then acquire that same massive business and then keep that message going, that mission going. And I'm still to this day learning from the same individuals, except now I'm actually talking to them on the phone and meeting with them in person. So just keep that knowledge base and that learning always in the forefront of what you're focused on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, one of the things that you were talking about earlier was that it's really important to figure out what you actually want, right? And before you can go find the people that are doing what you want to do, you have to first figure out what it is that you want to do. And you were saying, write down your goals and, plan 5, 10, 20 years out. Well, for somebody who just doesn't know what they want, or the opposite, who may have too many things that they want, what advice would you give them in order to help them get some clarity in their own life and really focus on the most important thing?
Yeah, it's the one way that I've done it before, and it works for some people it doesn't, is you just say, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do tomorrow? What would you spend the next, month or two doing if you had all the money in the world that would truly make you happy? And some people will say, oh, I'm going to go buy a bunch of cars and go race them down the road. Okay, well, that's not really what we're talking about. It's, it's what is going to make you happy today, tomorrow, 1 year, 5 years from now. What is that? What are you going to do with your life? And some people, it's helping others. Some people, it's, if that's the case, I'm going to go, restore cars. That's one of the things I love to do, and this is what I do, is I restore cars. Some people want to just travel. Some people want to go help others. They want to go on missions and help others in other countries. And so I always ask that question. That's one way to do it. If you didn't have to worry about money, didn't have to work for money, what would you do? Well, most people that really are passionate about, they actually would still work, but it would be in something they're passionate about. Another way to do it is to basically sit down and do a quick exercise, and is to imagine yourself, if you don't change what you're doing today, if you just keep doing what you're doing today, where will you be 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years, and then like 20 years, and just focus on that. If you don't do anything different, where will you be? Now focus on how that's going to make you feel. How would that make you feel? Really put yourself into those shoes. 20 years from now, where are you at if you don't do anything different today, and how does it make you feel? Is your life, good, or do you feel like you've wasted your time? Have you wasted your life? And when you look back, are you sad and angry at what your life has become, or are you happy? Then come back to today and say, okay, now, if you start taking action today, you start changing your life today, you start moving towards, what would make you happy? What's that going to look like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And how does that make you feel now? If you focus on that and you say, okay, If you do that stuff today, you take action today to go down that path, that new path, focus on how it's going to make you feel, and do that daily. Focus on that. What are you doing today to make that a reality? Because it can't be next week, it can't be next year. You have to start now. And so focus on that. And then, what that actually means to people. There's a thing that I do, my brother Jake and I do for our business and personally as well. We just say, okay, where do we want to be? And, and we're very specific. And that's the thing, is you have to get very specific. Okay, I want to have a nice house. No, that's not enough. It's like, how much money is in your bank account? How much do you have coming in per day? What is it? You want to have one car or two cars? Do you want to go on a vacation once or twice a year? Okay. Where do you want to go? How much is it going to cost? Get very, very specific on what you want, because the more specific you are on what you want, the harder you will work for it. Most people just say, I want to have $1 million in the bank. Okay, I'll give you $1 million. I'll put it in your bank account, but you can't spend it. Now you don't really want $1 million anymore, because that's not really what you want. You want what that will provide you. You want the life that it will provide you. Wealthy people don't care about having $1 million. It's what that $1 million will provide. It's the freedom, the financial security. That's what they focus on. Another good example is that people always say, well, I want to have this life, but it's too expensive. It's too much. Yeah, I'd love to have a Ferrari, but it's $250,000. I can't do that. Well, do you realize that having a Ferrari typically is only about $1,000 to $1,500 a month? It's not as much money as most people think. And so another exercise that's really good is to imagine, say, in 3 years or 5 years, what your best life is. What do you have? You have a house, you have a car, you have a yacht, you have go on vacation, all these things. Well, put a dollar amount to those. What's the mortgage actually on your house, on that house? What's the lease on the car? How much does that vacation cost? And then you say, okay, now what would that take per day to live? And I guarantee you, for most people, that dollar amount is a lot smaller than they think it is. And so, especially if you're an online business person or entrepreneur, it can also make it within reach. It's in reality. It's not this massive number. I know some very, very, very wealthy people, and they have some very nice things, but they're all leased. What they actually make and their net worth is a lot lower than people would perceive them to be. So get very specific about what you want. Very specific. That would be one of my best recommendations. Don't just throw something out there and think about it. Write it down, be very specific, and focus on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I want to dive a little bit more into your history. So we kind of stopped on the timeline right before you went to college. So could you maybe give us a little bit of insight on your experiences during that time?
Yeah, so I went to college, got a halfway decent grades probably, had fun, got a degree in construction management and business, and then went out and got a good job. Lived in multiple different areas around the country, in San Francisco, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, Louisiana, some other places probably in between there, and was typically doing the standard thing that everybody else does, and met my wife, got married, got a house and a car payment, just like everybody else. And then just like everybody else, my net worth was cut almost in half in 2008. And that's when my mind started to shift. And it started doing it right before that, but that was a major impact to me. And another thing that was a very much of an impact to me before that was my grandfather had passed away. And he passed away before he'd really enjoyed his retirement, I guess I would say. So he worked for decades as a school teacher, and then, finally was able to retire and make the finances work to be able to retire. And then he got leukemia and Parkinson's a few years after that. And so they were planning to travel the country in a motorhome, but they sold it. He got sick, was sick for 7 years before he passed away. Never really enjoyed his retirement. So that mentality that I saw at that point in time was work hard so you can enjoy life in retirement. I'm not saying that they don't, people don't enjoy life, before that, but is it the life that they would choose if they had the choice? And so that sort of set me on a path as well. And so then when 2008 happened, I started thinking about, what am I doing? Do I have a financial future? And I had never even thought about that. People don't think about that a lot of times, especially when you're in middle class and, you're working hard during the week. You're living for Friday and dreading Monday. That mentality. And all of a sudden I said, well, what's my financial future? And so I was a numbers guy. I had a business, minor in business. So I ran my numbers and realized that if I died and liquidated everything, I'd be worth zero. and I've been working for 10 plus years in the industry. And so it's like, well, wait a second here. What are people doing if you're working with this, all this, and you have no financial foundation under you? You're worth nothing. And so that was a big catalyst for me that started to change the way that I thought about my future and my finances in life. And that's one exercise I recommend everybody do. What is your net worth today? If you liquidated everything else and you were gone, what is your value financially? Do you have value there or not? If you pass away or if you stop working, what's your financial situation? Do you have financial security for your family and for yourself? And unfortunately, most people would say no, but most people don't think about it. So that was my path, was just doing this traditional corporate job, W-2, working for somebody else, trading my time for money. And I don't do that anymore, of course. I got out of that. And it, once again, what got me out of that was just knowledge and education, just changing my focus.
Absolutely. So, after 2008, you said your mindset shifted and you started to educate yourself, set yourself on a path to become more successful. Well, what actionable steps did you take to get from that point in 2008 to where you are now? What was the timeline?
It was pretty short. It was within 3 years. I think I had left my corporate job once I started down the path. But one, it was I started reading quite a bit, and so success books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Millionaire Mind, Millionaire Next Door. I have a bunch up here actually in front of me that I've read. Irresistible Offer, The Secret Day Formula, or The Perfect Day Formula, Ultimate Selling Machine. Just a bunch of those type of books. Success of the Millionaire Mind, T. Harv Eker, a lot of his stuff. And just started reading that stuff and started just changing the way that I thought. And then I started going to, and I said, hey, I like investing. It's something I enjoy. I like that concept. So I started learning all about real estate investing and, started buying real estate properties using IRA and 401k monies. And my brother and I did some rehab projects. We started learning how to do that stuff. And we had some wins, we had some losses, but it was amazing. I was doing projects and I was making 50, 60, 70% return on my money annualized on just projects I was doing. And it was amazing. I was outperforming my 401k, the stock market, everything, just doing real estate. But through taking action by going to, like, say, a Tony Robbins event or something like that, or going to a mastermind event with a local meetup group and meeting with people and learning what they were doing and saying, okay, can I be involved? And so I just started asking that, started gaining knowledge and saying, I want to be involved. The doors opened up to us to other investment strategies that we started learning. So we started investing in websites, as an example. So we invested in websites. We invested in oil and gas. We invested in notes. We invested in personal lending. And we started having success, and we started just rolling that over. So that's the actions that I took, was just going out there and meeting with people and then finding something that I was attracted to, whether it's an online business or it's an investment strategy or, maybe it's real estate, and say, okay, what is that something I can do, and learn about it and then implement it. So that's what it was for Jake and I. And then we created our own private fund that could, even further leverage investments. And then we became members of the Elevation Group. And then we said, okay, what is our passion here? And it ended up being, we want to help other people. And so the opportunity came to acquire that massive business, and that's what we did. And the other thing I would always recommend to people is that every single successful person, especially millionaires that I've met and studied and I know, without a doubt, every single one has a business of some kind. And so right now we're actually putting together a coaching program just specifically for beginning entrepreneurs on how to lay out that business foundation for them. Because that's the one thing I've found, is that there's so much information out there. It's a shotgun of information. Is that we really want to help people that were like us 5, 6, 7 years ago, and we kind of accelerate and help them build that foundation so they can have success.
Absolutely. So you were talking about how you really wanted to help young budding entrepreneurs who were 5 to 7 years before you. What advice would you give them? What do you think is, in order to really break that mold, what do you think is the most important thing?
So if you're at that level, I'm assuming most of those individuals probably have W-2 jobs. The one thing that really had a huge impact to me is that if I don't do something different, I have no financial future and I have no control over my life. So for me, it was take control of that. Take control of your financial future. Don't just hand it over to an employer, Wall Street, the government, and then close your eyes and hope for the best. Just take control of it. And I'll always repeat it. Once again, that is, you have to have the knowledge. It doesn't mean you have to actually do that type of stuff. Like, as an example, oil and gas. I have knowledge about oil and gas, but I have enough to actually decide what to do in it. But I'm not going to go do it myself. I'm not going to go drill a well or anything. But I gained knowledge about that and said, is this something I want to do? Real estate. Is it something that I want to do? Now, real estate, I actually have quite a bit of knowledge on. I've actually done rehabs myself, rental properties, done a lot of lease options and subject to type properties that some people would probably know what I'm talking about. But I enjoyed that. I enjoy real estate. But for people that are just getting going, is it find something that you enjoy, that you can control and learn about, and you can be the one that actually is taking action. So go ahead and do that, and then realize what is it you want to do with your life. That to me was a big one for me. Is like, do you want to do your W-2 job? If you do the next 10 years, is that going to make you happy? Is that going to make your family secure? Answer that question, yes or no. Because if the answer is no, then you have to do something different. You have to change. Now, what would make that a yes? That's another way I look at it. Is what would make that a yes? Okay, this is what you're doing today. Does that make you happy and secure? Yes. Okay, so what is that? Go and do that.
Absolutely. I really think that's great advice. So, you were saying go find what makes you happy, find what interests you and do that. So what about real estate really jumped out to you? Why did you pick real estate as your thing?
It was just at the beginning is what I did for real estate. I don't do as much of it now, but when I was getting going, the one thing I realized about real estate is that it's everywhere. You shop inside real estate, you go to bed inside real estate, but you work inside real estate typically if you're in an office. Every day you interact with real estate. It's it's like one of those things. It's like food and water, and shelter. Well, shelter is real estate. It's all around us. And I learned this after the fact, but just about every millionaire I've ever interviewed and studied, they typically, a lot of them have real estate in their portfolio of some shape or kind, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, they have real estate inside their portfolio because it is just one of those constant investments. It's stable investments. It's been around for, thousands of years. It'll be around for thousands of years. And so it's just one of those constants. Versus someone says, "Oh, look at Bitcoin or something like that, or forex trading. Go do that." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going to go do real estate. It's been around. It's stable. It's like oil and gas. It's been around. It's got a solid foundation, and you can look back into history and know what to expect." The one thing I also like about real estate is there's more than one strategy. There's dozens of strategies. You can be a real estate agent. You can be an investor. You can be an owner. There's so many different ways to invest in real estate. It's phenomenal. And for those that can really, there's a lot of people in that industry though that are doing it. But once again, that means that you can learn from a lot of people too. So that's what attracted me to real estate.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for somebody who may want to get into real estate, what would you suggest be their first couple of steps? Like what strategies might they want to consider, and how can they really get their foot in the door with real estate?
Yeah, so one major resource that is out there that I always recommend is Bigger Pockets, the website biggerpockets.com. It's a massive website, but they have some articles and some beginner guides for people that want to learn about real estate to get into it. So there's that. Obviously read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a fiction book, but it's just got a good message inside of it that can really kind of help your mindset around real estate, and then just dive into it. Because you can invest in real estate without any money, and it's harder than, of course, than if you have money to go buy, say, a rental property. Because there's so many ways to invest. You can buy rental properties, you can buy turnkey rental properties, you can get into multifamilies, you can invest in funds that invest in real estate. You can do pretty much anything you think of. You can do wholesaling, which is something that people can get into real estate with little money or no money, just for marketing. You can do wholesale, you can do lease options, subject to financing. You can be a lender if you have capital. You can lend to rehabbers. There's just so many things you can do. And it's also, it works in almost any market. And I've done pretty much a little bit of everything inside real estate. There's a lot of strategies that you can get started with little. I've mentored people in real estate. I know off the top of my head, 6 individuals that started 2 years ago with nothing and now have 3, 4, 5 rental properties, and they're moving into the more of the multi-unit ones because those are provide long-term stability. Yeah, it's just one of those things. And also, there's history to real estate. You can look back on history and see what has it done because the strategies change over time. In 2006, it was a high market. People were a little blind to how high it was and were investing like crazy and got kind of caught with their pants down in 2008 and 9. But a lot of people that I know made a killing in 2009, in 2008, 2010 because they were investors. They were poised to take advantage of the market when it fell. And so they had capital, they had cash, or they had other strategies. And that's when I made a lot of money inside real estate was when the market fell. I took advantage of it because there's a lot of things you can do if you have that knowledge. And I had some mentors, and I actually took courses on some real estate coaching, some high-end ones at that point in time because I knew that they were worthwhile. It was before everybody else got in. But yeah, the market's always cyclical, just like the stock market. It goes up and down. So have a strategy no matter what.
Absolutely. So from real estate, you said you joined the Elevation Group, and then eventually you and your brother acquired it. Can you talk a little bit about specifically what the Elevation Group does and maybe give some insight in that timeline of how you came to acquire it?
Yeah, so the Elevation Group, it was started in 2010, and it brings the wealth strategies of the ultra-rich to the middle class so they can build wealth just like the rich. And because if you want to be rich, you have to invest like the rich. And the strategies they use are different than most, everyone else in the middle class and low class, because they have different contacts and they have different information, different knowledge, but they're open to anyone. That's what the most amazing thing is what the wealthy, successful people do is available to anyone. It's, they just have the knowledge and information and the access to the right contacts. And so EVG, what we do is everybody knows Robert Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, he has advisors, oil and gas, real estate, insurance, whatever it is, he has advisors. Every successful person that we've met with has advisors that advise them because they go find the expert in that one area and get their advice. And that's exactly what we do. So we've interviewed Robert Kiyosaki's advisors. We've interviewed advisors of the ultra rich that advise billionaires. And we take their lessons and information and we bring them to the Elevation Group for our members to learn from and implement. And then if they want, they can go work with those advisors. And so the power of the Elevation Group, what makes it just so amazing is that you have access to people that you typically cannot just go out and access. And you learn their strategies that we can go implement, that anyone can go implement. What is they're doing with their money today to be ready for tomorrow? As an example, right now, for one of the first times ever in the history of mankind, our debt is beyond belief. It's so high in the U.S. right now. It's beyond what we actually produce as for our GDP, which I don't think has ever happened before. We've entered this, this climb, with debt, with that is probably unsustainable. And there's 7 stages to currency that some people believe in a country. And you go through 1 through 7. And stage 7, basically, your currency collapses, and you go into massive either hyperinflation and a Great Depression. And most people don't realize that in the U.S. that's happened twice before, where our currency has completely collapsed, and our economy has been destroyed. And that happened in the Civil War and one of the time in history in the U.S. This has happened twice already, and right now we're in close to stage 7 again. So no one knows what's going to happen, but it's interesting. More millionaires were made during the Great Depression and in 2008 as well than ever before in the history. And so for us and for EVG, and our mission is to empower everyone with the knowledge of the strategies of the wealthy.
So it's a great goal to empower people. Let's say that the economy does crash, the value of the dollar, it takes an all-time low, and we have another Great Depression. What do we do? What, in your opinion, what would be the best way to prepare for that and to make sure that we're not caught with our pants down like before?
A couple of things people can do is one is that there's going to be what we call a wealth transfer. And it's always happening. It's, wealth is always being transferred. It's not like it doesn't disappear. It's just transferred, just like energy. So And right now, there's more people are becoming millionaires right now than ever before, consistently. But at the same time, the middle class is shrinking too, and more people are becoming lower income or considered lower income. So in the U.S., as an example, 90% of the population is considered low income. 9% is considered, middle income or upper middle income, and 1% is obviously the higher net worth. And what happens is that the people in the upper 1% or 2% or 5, 10, even 10% they're not invested in 100% in the stock market, as an example, because when the market crashes, that goes away. They have equity in their house that they feel good about that. Well, when the market crashes, the equity is worthless. It's on paper. It's a piece of paper. It's really not real unless you can, spend it. And so what a lot of people in those cases have is they have assets outside of the market. They have real estate. So they have cash flow in real estate because I've owned rental properties that are in, I call them middle America. And when the market goes down, those still cash flow. They still provide income. So I'm not hurt nearly as bad as if I just had a job that I lost. Other tangible assets that hold their value. Oil and gas can hold its value. Gold and silver can hold its value. So you have different assets. You're basically diversified in what you have control of. But also at the same time, when the market's going up, you're invested in the stock market. You're invested in things that actually do go up in value. You do invest in real estate for equity. So I guess the way I would look at it is you're always doing something different based upon history. Now no one knows what's going to happen moving forward in the future, but all you have to do is look backward a little bit in history and say, okay, right now this is where we're at. Okay, great. I'm going to invest in real estate for the next 3 years, and then I'm going to offload it, and then I'm going to move that over into, maybe it's going to be multifamily unit, complexes, or I'm going to go invest in land, or I'm going to go invest in whatever it is. But they're always moving their strategy depending on what's going on. Like right now, the market is really high, and so a lot of people I know are not in the stock market anymore. They've cashed out and they put their money into long-term real estate projects. As just one example off the top of my head, that's what they're doing. A lot of people, we have a strategy inside EVG called elevation banking strategy. People have moved their money inside there. When the market crashes, their value doesn't go down, and they actually still make like a 5% return. And so they've moved money out of the market into that one to keep it safe from a potential market crash here, maybe coming soon. There's people that are doing private lending that I know right now doing lending on large real estate projects because those will hold their value regardless and they're secured. It just depends. There's different strategies for different people. But in real estate, it's a great one because there's always a strategy no matter what's going on. So as I said, people that are doing rehabs, high-end rehabs here in Seattle have slowed down a little bit. Some people have, and they've stopped having so much leverage, and they're moving their money either out of the metropolitan area into the outer urban areas where the prices don't get hurt as bad, and even outside of the Washington State area because the housing market here, when it crashed last time, it really hurt Seattle. But you go to someplace down in the south, it's not nearly as hurt, but you don't have equity though either.
Absolutely. So, I want to talk a little bit about what you're doing now, right? Because we talked about your past, got some great insight into your history, but what is your biggest passion now, and what do you really spend most of your time focusing on?
Right now, I focus mainly on the elevation group and that business model and just providing as much information as we can to our members and subscribers. And right now we're looking at doing a coaching program for beginning entrepreneurs. With the internet right now and websites, and this is the opportunity there's a lot of people moving to that direction to create an online business. Hey, I have an information product I want to sell, or I want to sell a physical product online. And what we've realized is 90% of those individuals might possibly will fail. They won't be successful because they don't have the basis in place to actually be successful as a business owner because they don't realize how to be a business person. So as an example, I can't remember how many millions of businesses for sale right now, but I look at it and say, well, okay, you can go create your own business and there's a higher risk of failure. But there's 10,000 baby boomers approximately retiring every day, and between 17 and 20% are business owners. To give you an idea of how many businesses are out there for sale, and they've been around for years. They're already successful. They already have the resources in place, the connections, all of that. And you can buy these businesses sometimes with no money down, and they're already cash flowing. So that is an amazing strategy that we're trying to help people with right now. Second, we're doing a coaching program to help people that want to create a business but don't understand that they need to have that foundation in place. Because most people, when they go and they have this idea of, I'm going to create an online business. They basically think that I'm going to have money all of a sudden and I'm going to have growth. But in order to have growth, you have to first have in place foundation and security. Those are what every wealthy, ultra rich person has in place. And so our coaching program takes that beginning entrepreneur who is starting to make some money, but we give them an LLC. We teach them the basics of how to think like a business owner and treat it like a business. We teach them, here's tax strategies that will save you thousands of dollars a year. We'll even help you go back and look at the previous 3 years of tax returns to get you money back. Teach you how to do that. We teach them, here's growth strategies. So once you have a business making money, here's how to make your money go work for you. And we'll actually introduce you to the growth strategies so you can go actually invest in them. And so we're developing that program right now. We're going to launch it out here in a couple of months or probably next month for those individuals. So providing those types of things to people that I look at and I see that are not in the marketplace right now, that people are not talking about, not teaching. Everybody will sell you a program on how to be an entrepreneur, but nobody will tell you how to be a successful entrepreneur.
That's awesome. That's a great program. So when you're putting that together and you are bringing in all these different resources and putting all your knowledge in, who exactly is your target market? Who is your ideal customer? If you could say, I want person XYZ to come through this program, who are you looking for that can most benefit from this?
For the coaching program, it's going to be basically anybody that has some sort of a product or a business or an idea in place, or they're making revenue or money from some side business. Maybe they bought some other program online from somebody else, teaching them how to be a coach or teaching them how to be a consultant or teaching them how to sell on Amazon. So those individuals, that business, they're doing that program successfully. They're making some revenue, possibly whether it's $500 or $5,000 a month. They've done that, but they don't understand how to operate that like a business. Because the problem is that a lot of times when people go and do that, it's like, how do you measure your success? The basics of business is, are you revenue positive? Are you profitable? Do you have the foundation in place? And most people don't realize that if you don't even have, like, say, an LLC or a business entity in place, and yet you're operating like a business, and you're doing something like that, you're 40% more likely to be audited by the IRS. And the IRS loves that when they find those people, because they will just destroy you. And so helping people with those types of things, getting that foundation in place, because it's amazing. People say, well, I got to put this in place and I got to do that. You won't believe how much more successful you'll be once you have that stuff in place, that structure in place. You can blow your business out of the water once you have the proper entity in place. You understand taxes, because taxes, it's a game, and it's a fun game. All the ultra rich, the people that I know, they play that game every single day. Small business owners, the middle class, they play it once a year and they lose every single time. So taxes is a fun game because, it's amazing how much money you can put back in. 2 years ago, my federal income tax was 0%. Zero. That was a fun game. I won really big that year. And every year since then, it's been about 5 or 7%. So I always ask people, would you like to pay 7% or 5% or zero in federal income tax? You better say yes, because I guarantee you almost nobody is doing that. But imagine how much more money you'll have in your pocket if you did that, and what you could do with that money in your business, in your personal life. It's amazing how fast you can grow and expand and be successful when you have the right foundation and structure in place. It's amazing. So much fun too. And so people that are in that space, that are just getting going, that really want to have a successful business that really can transform their life, we put that foundation in place for them, walk them through that process so they can then really focus on making that business really successful. And then we help them make that business. And then we help them actually, hey, when you have money coming in, how do you make that money go work for you? So that then you can, when you're making money when you're asleep, you're making money when you're on vacation. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you're all of a sudden you're making money. You're not trading your time for money. So that's sort of what that coaching program is. For the elevation group itself, a lot of our people that really are drawn to it are those that had regular job, W-2 jobs, have a 401k and no real financial future, and they don't really understand how they're going to gain financial security or retirement. And so we introduce them to the strategies of the wealthy, and it's how to think like the wealthy. It's how to invest like them. It's how to secure your family. and protect yourself from the marketplace when it crashes, and so that you don't have to worry about that. And it's how to basically make your money go work for you. So, and that's typically your standard middle class guy working for ABC company. I've been doing that for 20, 30 years, and after 20 or 30 years, it's like you realize you only have a couple $100,000 saved up, and you don't know what you're going to do. And that's who I really, really want to connect with.
Absolutely. I think for everybody listening at this point, I guess the biggest question is, how do you get started with that? How do you enroll in those courses? How do you get connected with the Elevation Group? What are the steps that we need to take in order to start learning these things?
For the Elevation Group, you can just go to it's theelevationgroup.com. You can go to our Facebook page, find us there, and just start following us. I do Facebook Live videos every week. I'm doing one today, actually, I think. For the people who are on this podcast, you can go to, I believe it's joinevg.com/special, and you can go take a look at that link. And then you can go to our main homepage on our website and just join our newsletter and start following us. We have emails that go out every single week about different topics and different strategies. And then, if someone really wants to be involved in, say, like a coaching program, I would just recommend they just contact support at theelevationgroup.com, and we'll put them on the list. Right now, we're not promoting that to anybody. So, but for this group, or anyone who's on this podcast can go ahead and do that, and I'll put them on our list for when we launch that here in about 4 to 6 weeks.
That's fantastic. And for everybody listening, I'm going to put those links down in the description below. So definitely make sure to take advantage of all of those links. Brian is definitely a very smart guy. I would highly encourage you to reach out and try to learn from the things that he's put together. I think you could definitely learn a lot. So, Brian, I do want to thank you for all the time and value you provided on this call. I have a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
So, we talked about your past. We talked a little bit about what you're doing now, all the exciting things that are coming. But I want to talk 20 years out, right? You're saying always think about the future, and figure out what you're doing today, how that will affect the future. So what does the future hold for you? What does your 20 years out look like? Where do you want to be?
So really, my thing is that we want to create the educational resource that is unlike anything you've seen out there right now, because no one's being taught this stuff in school. No one's being taught this stuff by Wall Street because they don't want you to know about it. The government, they probably shouldn't even go there, but they definitely don't want. They're not looking out for our best interests. I honestly believe that. And so I want, my vision, my passion is to have the Elevation Group just be the go-to educational resource that empowers people with the ability to control their future and their financial security, and provide financial security for not just a couple people, but for a majority of the middle class in the world, and just be that name that is people relate to financial security, providing that for your families, for your future generations, and just taking that control and putting it back into the hands of those who deserve it.
So, as you're doing all these things and being as successful as you are and overcoming all the things that you have, what is your purpose? What is your driving factor? What is the thing that motivates you? Because, at the end of the day, if we don't have something like family or independence or the yearning for freedom to get us out of the bed in the morning, then, trying to accomplish all these things would not happen. So what motivates you?
It's very personal. I want my family to be financially secure, just like everybody else. I want them to be able to, live a life without that. I call it the black cloud over them, which is, to me, is corporate America. It is the government. It is Wall Street, being controlled by those individuals and not being able to make your own choices with your life. Because for a long time in my life, I made my choices based upon what I was told to do or what I thought I was, had to do to be successful. And so making sure that my family has the choices, my children have their choices, their children have the choice of what they want to do with their life, and make sure that they understand to make that impactful to humanity, to give it back. That to me is sort of why I get out of bed every day, is to give that to my family and to myself and to the people that I associate with. Be successful, be driven with purpose, and turn around and give back.
Absolutely. That's a very noble purpose. So when you're not being a businessman and you don't have your briefcase on and your tie on, what do you like to do? What do you like to do for fun? How do you relax? How do you de-stress and enjoy life?
Well, for my family and I, we live in a small town outside of Seattle, Washington. That's at the base of the Cascade Mountains. And so we enjoy the summers here immensely. So I'm a big car guy. So anything that has, two wheels or four wheels, I'm all about it. So I have a couple. I just actually sold one recently, but I have a couple. I've restored cars, built cars, classic cars, and hot rods. So you'll always find me on the back roads with my kids and driving around. And then I very much enjoy the wildlife around here. We spend a lot of time on the river. We live right on a river, and then we have a property up in Alaska. So we go there during the summertime to spend this. It's actually way out in the woods, so it's just beautiful. We'll spend time on the bays and go fishing up there, and salmon fishing and halibut and all that stuff. So that's what we spend a lot of time doing. And then all my family's here as well with my brothers. My brother Jake and I spend a lot of time together. That's what I love doing.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, with all the things that you're doing and the things that you like to do, you probably wear a lot of different hats, right? You have to be a business owner, you're a family man, you have all these different things. So how would you describe yourself? If you had to label yourself, how do you really see yourself? Who are you?
Everybody always asks me that. It's like, what do you do for a living? Is one of the best questions. Oh, you're an entrepreneur, or you're a business owner, or this. And I always just say I'm a student. I'll never stop being a student, because I'm not going to go out here and say I'm the expert. Come follow me. I'm a student. I'm a lead. Come follow us on our journey. We're leaders. But I will always want to be a student. And I always say I'm always on an adventure. We're always on this journey. This journey is never going to end. And so my passion is to invite and get as many people along that journey as possible, because we're all doing this together. That's my big thing with the Elevation Group, is just we're on this journey together, and we want as many people to share in it as possible. And secondly, I'm probably an investor, entrepreneur, business owner, all that stuff, but I would say I'm probably an investor first and foremost. But we're just on an adventure.
That's awesome. And I love that the notion of always being on a journey, right? Because it really is never ending. The entrepreneurial journey, investing journey, the journey of being a student, journey of just being a human being. It ends when it ends, but until then, it's always going, and we can always reach new heights. So, I'm really glad that you said that, and I think it's really profound. So, I do want to thank you very much for all the time you spent. I do have one more question for you. So, is there anything about yourself, any piece of who you are that I did not ask you about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Let me think about that for a sec. One thing is, a lot of people don't know what they don't know. And sometimes you don't know it until someone points it out. You don't know it until it's too late. You just don't know it until you learn something. And so for me, that's been sort of something that my brother Jake and I have to always be aware of, is what don't we know? And are we asking the right questions? And so as business owners, sometimes what we've realized is that we're making assumptions on all this stuff, and we're directing people and resources and all these things, and we have to step back and say, wait a second. Our mindset is more geared towards analytical. In reality, what we're doing here in this business is more artistic. So we have to be very careful that we don't sabotage ourselves, because we're doing something, we're providing direction that goes against with kind of who we are, but it goes against what that business model is. And so you always need to make sure that you understand that and get those resources in place. So as an example, inside the Elevation Group, one of the things we give to our members, our new members, is what we call the investor personality profile. And so one thing we developed that we've learned, and we've talked to a lot of successful business owners and investors, is that they learn the hard way who they are as a person, as an investor. And like, as an example, Steve Jobs, he's not going to sit down at a desk and go over spreadsheets and analyze the numbers, right? When he was running that business, that's not who he was. He was the visionary, right? You can go look at anybody, like even Donald Trump, the president of the United States. He has a profile. He's a negotiator type of a guy, most likely. He's that guy who's going to go in there and swing a big stick and get the deal done. But he's not the guy that's going to come in after the fact and clean it up with the details and make it actually happen. And so what we developed, this profile that takes a bunch of answers that you give, and it spits out results and says, this is the personality profile that who you are, and this is what you should focus on and what you should be aware of. That could be your pitfalls. And so we give people that knowledge, because what happens is most people and this is what we found out, and I've had this happen to me so many times, is we go do something and we fail. We do something and we fail. Our neighbor goes and does the same thing and he crushes it. And I'm like, well, this guy, he didn't even graduate high school or something like that. I'm just using an example, but you're like, how come that person could go do it and crush it and I couldn't? Or my sister-in-law or brother-in-law did it and I couldn't make this work. It's because that their personality is different and they did something that complemented who they were. And so I always say, when you're going to go do something that complements who you are. Find out who you are as a person. And that's something that's taken me, my brother Jake, a while to figure out. And now that we're aware of it, you can be very conscious of those pitfalls. And then always be getting advice from somebody else on those same things as well. That's not in your company or in what you're doing. So that's one of the things that's how we develop that. That's kind of something that I've learned is that do something that complements who you are, but find out what that is first, who you are. And so we have that profiles for our members so that they can make sure that when they go look at a business or an opportunity, they can see if it fits with who they are as a person first.
Absolutely. It's wild. It really is. So, I definitely encourage everybody to check out those links below. I think that it could really help you out on your own journey to connect with like-minded people and people who can help you get to that next level. And I think that the Elevation Group and all the things associated with that could be that thing for you. So, Brian, I really want to thank you for all the time you've spent and the value you've provided on this call. I really do appreciate it. To everybody listening, I want to thank you. Interview after interview, always come back and keep doing these interviews, and it really is for you. So I want to thank you for all the support and everything that you guys do as a community. So this has been another Project Egg interview. Today we've been talking with Brian Fouts from Washington. Thank you so much.